I'm very glad to be here for the second time. What an honor to be invited again. And I think with the current state of AI, you can imagine why. Because this is an entirely new presentation. I don't think there is a single slide that will repeat, even though I was only here 1.5 years ago. Can you imagine any other technology that would cause this? I don't think so. If you do, let me know. I still have a couple bucks left over from my Tesla purchases, so willing to invest in whatever that tech may be. Why am I here specifically? So, that's kind of the cool thing about the job I get to do. Most people, at least from the outside, enjoy the products that my industry makes, and that is movies, that is series, and internet entertainment, basically anything moving on any screen that you enjoy watching. So I'm not talking about, well, PowerPoints, but I'm talking about entertainment, entertaining films. And the first question I'd like to ask or place into the room here is, why are people in general so excited about generative AI, specifically in filmmaking? And it has to do with some very big numbers and some very small ones that I want to introduce to you. So first, a little clip you may recognize or not. This is from Avengers Endgame. Came out in 2019, so before this whole AI wave happened. That movie cost $356 million. Clip number 2. This is from a clip I made specifically for this presentation tonight. In a couple minutes, it cost me $5, and it was made using Ideogram and Seedance 2.0. Now, the Marvel fans among you might get really, really angry at me comparing these two, but most of my LinkedIn is screaming that they're the same, and the second type of clip is about to completely blow up the first type of clip, and all movies will cost $5 in the future. Where it gets really exciting is that this first movie earned $2.7 billion off that $356 million investment. So the reason all of these bros on LinkedIn get so excited about it is because this second one, obviously, will earn 2 likes on Instagram and a death threat. I think that's the wrong slide. I don't know. Something's wrong with these numbers. Well, I think we'll have to dive a little deeper into that. But before we get too deep in that topic, I want to introduce myself very briefly. So before this whole AI trend happened, before so many people flooded our timelines yelling about the future of the film industry, I was already in it. I was already making entertainment the old way, specifically by writing and directing both fiction podcasts. I did a little bit of TV and also mostly commercials. So most of my video work was done doing ads for these companies, but also more local. The Germans will know them. Bookstore chains like Hugendubel, but also Fritz Cola, which has become very popular with the EU, buy an EU trend. So I'm excited about that. And when AI came out, before any of the creative criticism happened, I was very excited because, like I would say most people working in this industry, I was working as an individual, I was working as a duo, or in very, very small teams, trying to get the budgets for the projects we wanted to make. And that's really tough. It's even tougher, I would say, in Germany than it is in the US, because the top maximum budgets are literally considered extremely low budget in Hollywood. So these ideas that you see here, this is historical fiction. There was only one way to make it, and that is for Audible, so for the ears. There's no way this would ever make it to a streaming service like Netflix, especially with, the writing credits I had at the time, which, I wasn't, or I'm still not a writing celebrity in any way. So when AI came out, oh my goodness, finally, this is a breakthrough. And I started doing stuff with AI, and thankfully I met someone who is here, Tobias Huber, and he worked at a film production company at the time. I did not mean to get everybody's eyes on him, but you'll survive. And together we decided, hey, this can be done in a grand fashion, and we're early. This was 2023, when Storybook Studios was founded, I joined, and we started working on projects to support the German film industry specifically, the wider European industry, to figure out how to finally compete on an international level using AI. So this is kind of our little timeline here. This is when we did our first tests and realized, wow, this could actually be useful. And it ends in 2025 because that is when we reached a breakthrough. This is when we realized, okay, the AI tools for the first time are useful enough that we can make realistic AI films, use it for visual effects that can possibly withstand, you know, big screens, movie theater screens. We're very proud of that last production, Daisy. You can almost not see it on the screen, but we convinced a very, very famous director in Germany, Peter Torwart, to make a short film with us and managed to impress him, I think. So that's very cool. We even were accepted at a normal film festival. Huge breakthrough, honestly, if you think about it. And in this same team, we also made what is considered the first AI-powered animated series worldwide called Space Vets. So very, very cool times. Now, we've decided to kind of reshape our collaboration. I'm going a little bit more freelance, so I'll talk more about that in this presentation, but please do approach us later. Storybook Studios is doing really, really exciting things in Munich specifically. So, what are we doing next? Today, I want to cover a couple points. We don't have that much time, but you came for Hollywood versus indie creators. We had this lovely text that announced possibly some tension between the big conglomerates and individual creators who are now very, very powerful. So we'll cover that before AI, because that tension actually existed previously, and only now is it getting a lot more attention. Then we'll cover the AI nuke. I call it a nuke because everybody's talking about it blowing things up, so what is this nuke even aiming at? Who is aiming it? A lot of questions. Then I'll cover making your own short AI film, because it is actually quite easy. I'll be totally transparent about that. The hard part is making it good. And finally, some paths forward. Where is it actually going? Very, very briefly, many of you probably don't know exactly what it takes, what types of people are involved, what stakeholders are involved in a traditional Hollywood production, so let's cover that. Usually, if it works perfectly well, it starts with a creator having an idea. This is what you imagine, right? A writer or a director has an idea, writes it down, and pitches it to a production company, which develops it further, you know, makes sure that maybe if it was just an idea, there's actually a screenplay, creates some visual materials, maybe makes a teaser trailer out of materials from other films and series, and then tries to sell it, because a production company usually does not have the money on hand to actually finance an entire production in many cases. So they go to a bigger company. The position of this company or the person in that company is called a commissioner, and they decide, hey, this is good, I'm going to order this production. So they buy in and they provide the budget. When this production works and it's complete, it then goes to a so-called distributor who makes sure it gets to screens. This is any screen you can imagine. This is movie theaters. This is also television. It's streaming services and what have you. It's your phone in the end. The reason I use the same two buildings, two icons for this is that oftentimes these are two people or two teams within the same company. So if you're working with a Netflix, for example, they order the production from the production company and are also the final screen in the end, right? But I mentioned there was already some tension happening before AI, because this is how professional production works more and more. It starts quite similar. A creator or creators have an idea. They develop it into a final script. They produce the production at home, either on their computer or on their phones or what have you, and distribute it themselves on small screens. Themselves is not quite true. They put it up on YouTube, they put it up on TikTok or Instagram, but in effect, they are the ones who decide what goes online, right? The algorithms then choose who to release it to, but in the end, I'm the one pressing publish. And then after that, Hollywood maybe finally wakes up, spits out their coffee, and decides, oh, we want some of that, and buy more from those creators. And then that work maybe makes it to bigger screens or streaming services and so forth. So you might be thinking, okay, but this is quite a rare case, right? I mean, we're still getting normal productions all the time. Yes, but this specific day, before I was even invited to speak here, is especially exciting because for the past few weeks, two movies have been leading the box office that were produced in exactly this way. One of them is Obsession, which has made over 234 million as of a couple days ago when I made this slide, and it was written and directed literally by an influencer comedian. This guy makes really silly skits online, and he has enough of a following and had enough of a great idea that Hollywood became interested in his work and decided, okay, we're going to finance this movie for, I think it was $750,000, the budget to make this film, and it's already grossed this much. The second example is the so-called Backrooms. This is also making over $200 million, and it was directed by a YouTuber who actually does visual effects, experimental films online to an audience of, I think he has 3 million subscribers. And he's built this audience since around 2016. These guys are extremely young, by the way, like early 20s, and gained the attention of a producer who believed in him, and both of these films are now being distributed kind of the classic way by Hollywood. You might be wondering, though, what exactly does this have to do with the blockbuster? These are both not Avengers Endgame. They're not based on comic books. They obviously don't cost hundreds of millions of dollars to produce. Well, because this is slightly a different model that you also need to know. How do blockbusters work? Well, it starts with IP, with intellectual property. So in this case, there's maybe a long time ago, originally, a creator had an idea and pitched it, right? But these are often comic books from like the 1930s. That's around when Superman became famous, or Batman, like all these big superheroes have been owned by large companies for a long time. And they just kind of decide, maybe it's time we make a little bit more money. Let's dig them up, see what's available in our archives, what we already own, that people already have positive attachments to. And then we hire some creators to have those ideas, write those scripts out. And that's a huge honor for creators. I don't even want to dunk on this concept because many people, these creators grew up on these IPs as well. Like, how cool is it for a comic book nerd who's now in his 30s, 40s to make a superhero film? But they're very much work for hire. Commissioner orders the production, distributor gets it to screens. Classic. Oftentimes the same companies. Now we get to the AI nuke. This, of course, is throwing a wrench in all of these systems, all of these tensions that we've discussed. But who exactly is AI going to nuke? Online, you see a lot of discussion about one very specific type of person who is in danger, and this is actually the creators. So the artists working on films, the people who have been working in this system, making things for a long time, whose jobs are dependent on it. But let's really question that. What are creators actually? They're actually the source of the storytelling competency. These people know the language of film. They know what audiences like. They know how to play with emotions and make us get our money's worth when we go to the movie theaters. Also, in some cases, the cases we've seen, they are becoming the source of the audience, especially the kind of originating creators, like the writers, the directors who have the idea, who do that communication, are building their audiences online already, on YouTube, on TikTok, on these platforms. And it's, I don't want to call it a cult of personality, but it's very, very person-based. And people want to stay loyal to people more than they do to companies. And, very, very exciting, they can use AI very easily on their phones, on their computers, to test out their ideas cheaply. I don't want to say for free. AI tools are, they do cost money, but much, much, much less. I would say in the hundreds to make an impressive short film. In some cases for 2,000, I mean, Danya, you sent me a link today. For 2,000, a feature film has been made using AI that is actually gaining an audience. And creators can also use this to make stuff that doesn't go directly to their audience, but to pitch into the traditional system. And this is something that I'd like to show you as one AI example by Tobias. It's a work that he made himself within a few days with tools available to him in a browser, just put together very, very competently. And he used this to successfully pitch a product that he managed to sell into a very traditional industry. I don't want to get too deep into it. You're free to tell people later if they ask, but let's watch.
Wake up! What say the gods?
I would appreciate a report, Centurion.
12 victims. Among them are publicanos.
A dead tax collector? That's your big mystery?
Do not joke. The forest here is as deep as Hades.
Then let's get to the bottom of it.
The people are afraid of her. They say she is talking to the spirits. Either you find the girl's father, or half the village ends up on a cross.
As long as it's the non-Roman half, right?
It was the spirits of the dead.
It was one of those filthy Celts. The Christians did it.
Maybe it was a bear. Am I the only one here who is not a complete idiot? She needs your help. And you need hers.
You filthy swamp rat!
As far as I can see, only one of us is in a swamp. Remember, Ghana! Remember!
Roma Invicta! Roma Invicta! The fate of Rome might depend on this.
Then I suppose we're fucked.
So again, one person, a few days, and a lot more work in the back end developing this story and writing it out, but this is part of a comprehensive pitch if you want to succeed today and are able to use AI tools. This is much, much more effective, as you can imagine, if you're a writer, if you're a director, than kind of the classic Word document that production companies get all the time. So I don't know if creators are going to be nuked. Is it going to be the production companies? I mean, let's wonder about this. These are kind of, we saw the in-between between the people with the money, the distributors, and the creators. Well, yeah, exactly. Why were they previously useful? They are a source of stability and structure between the artists and the money. The people working there, they've spent a lot of time building, I mean, honestly, financial competency, kind of dry stuff like that is essential in a film production, just bringing people together, product management. Pipeline has been an essential term in my job for the past couple months because there are so many moving parts in a film production that no individual artist and even small teams can really keep track of it when producing a huge series or a feature film. They're also a source of sales ability and networking, right? So they have built these abilities, these networks of people and creatives to bring together for decades. The internet and algorithms are helping with that now, so we can question how stable that is. But also, they can use AI, especially to identify and evaluate concepts. There are plenty of tools out there now that can take the absolute waterfall of pitches they get every day in their email inbox to tell them, hey, is there something interesting in here? Is this something that works with trends we've realized in the wider market, and really speed up that production? Something like the Backrooms movie, the horror movie I presented earlier, that could have been easily found by an AI who saw this Backrooms community and realized the creator might actually be capable of telling a story. So, also interesting. And obviously, I mentioned them already, Storybook Studios. There is a handful of AI-forward production companies that have been founded specifically to harness these tools and work from the ground up and try to build something that uses the advantages of companies that individuals may not have. Also in the bottom right corner, Gossip Goblin. If you have some time, definitely check out Gossip Goblin's YouTube channel. That's one of those creators that I believe will be one of those kind of those small teams or individual creators who we're going to hear a lot more of in very, very short time. So, production companies could be safer than we thought. Who's left? The clients, right? The people with the money. Well, yeah, exactly. They can throw money at things, at least for now. I think most people in this room are paying for at least one streaming service. They have very, very good cash flow, and they can afford to experiment. They can afford to produce much, much bigger things than small creators can. They're also a source of real-world distribution. What does that mean? Well, everybody else is completely reliant on YouTube, on Instagram. That's hard. These people can own the movie theaters, or at least have those connections to movie theaters. They have streaming services that, again, everyone is paying for already, that we have in our homes. And I have to share something with you, kind of a secret. Pretty much all of the creators I've mentioned have a sort of sickness that we desperately want to be on a big movie theater screen. Much more so than we want to be on YouTube. Views be damned. I know plenty of people who've taken the Netflix deal even though they made less money and had fewer viewers than they would have on their own YouTube channels. So this is actually an advantage I would give these people. And very, very interesting, they can, of course, develop AI further with their teams, their engineering teams, and their data and money. Netflix is, I would say, at the forefront of this. They just bought a company from Ben Affleck for $600 million and have actually started open sourcing their own AI video models. So there are some tools that they are actually providing. They're giving the rest of the community for us, honestly, to continue developing and hopefully bring them some value that they don't have to pay for. So they're fully on board with this. So I think all of these players are somewhat safe if they're willing to use AI. And I can guarantee you the clients are doing so. The production companies, they're at least curious. There are some being founded specifically for it, so they're winning. And the creators are lagging behind, honestly. Most of them are. A couple are accepting it. A lot are kind of angry and scared, which I don't think is a helpful state of mind. But let's actually do something about that. How is this done? Well, I'm going to do a quick run through of what this presentation looked like 1.5 years ago. AI filmmaking tools worked as follows. I'm just going to be ridiculously fast now. You'd have an image base model. This would be something like Stable Diffusion XL. You would have to use your own hardware to possibly train this into a so-called fine-tuned checkpoint so it looked like your style. Then you would have to plug in a style LoRa, which is an additionally trained model, a character LoRa, which looks like your character, so the models are actually able to create your character. And then you'd add a text prompt, finally a prompt, and you get an image out of it with a really, really low resolution. So what do you do with that? Well, you put that into a video-based model. Those are really hard to improve by training your own, so you're kind of stuck with that, whatever it is, provided by some other company. You put your image in that, then you put your text prompt in that, and then you finally get a 5-second long MP4 file. You need to put a lot of those videos together in order to have a film, don't you? And the quality was pretty bad. Oh yeah, and also, it doesn't look like this. The interface was something like this. Actually quite a bit more complicated. Now, of course, I'm in part kidding, but also not. I don't want to say that these tools are completely useless because they are still in use by visual effects people. But it's much easier these days, of course. And I want to show you something that you can use yourself. So let's check it out. How do these tools actually work in 2026? Great news. You can throw whatever you want at them. You can put images in there, video in there, sound, and of course your text prompt, and it'll just swallow it and understand. This is the magic of so-called multimodal AI video models, and they've been all the rage for the past, I would say, half year. Seedance being the best one at the moment. It came out in February, and it's finally the thing that people thought AI models were going to be 4 years ago, roughly. Because what do you get out of this? You get 15-second long videos, which are a lot more valuable if you're trying to make a film. And this is the UI. Much, much easier. Literally all you need to do is throw your files in there and put some text in there, and you're done. So if you want to actually learn to make your own stuff or just play around with it, I would recommend magnific.com. Not paid product placement, they're just very, very cool. And they've been extremely supportive to creators. So that's the place I recommend it. Let's actually make a video. What do we need? Well, any project, any film needs a main character. And I thought because we're in Bavaria, let's make a character that should look familiar to those of us who spend a lot of time in the Alps. I'm going to ask for a full body character turnaround with front, side, and back views of an adorable hare with deer antlers. A Wolpertinger. You can look at the rest of the prompt if you want. I'm also going to be giving this to the organizers so you can take a closer look. And here we go. Here's our little Wolpertinger character. Of course, he's going to be in a little creek at the Bavarian Alps. Now, I honestly had a little bit of struggle making this with a pure text prompt, so I gave it some help. And the great thing is the image models are also multimodal, so I can't only give them a text prompt, I can give them a little bit of a sketch. So I thought, let's, very, very rough. I want some forest in the background, and I want a creek in the foreground with 3 rocks on it that the character can jump on. I'd say pretty close, pretty good. So we have our environment. And now a prop that this character can interact with. A little green vintage Bavarian hunter's hat with a very specific feather on it that's going to become relevant in just a moment. There we go. And you'll notice I create these on a neutral gray background. So it's easier for the model to understand it without further context. There's no table. You can actually see I kept getting this specific one with a table. I had to prompt no table. So now we have these 3. Now you're probably wondering, how does one prompt something like this? Really, what are the rules to a good video prompt once we have all these images? Well, I have great news. These are the 5 words that I've decided have worked best for me in the past, and they're very basic questions, right? You need to know who. This is the subject of the clip. What is the action? What are these subjects or the subject actually doing in this video? The words. This has become very relevant as the models have learned to speak. You can actually prompt specific dialogue of your character if you want that character to talk. Where, obvious, the environment. What's the lighting? What's the weather like? What's happening to the background? And the way, very simple, the style and camera. You might think, oh, well, it's a video, right? There's one style. Well, no, there's a lot of animated styles. 2D animation, for example. Characters move completely different from a real film. It sounds obvious, but I teach a lot of animation courses. People forget this, and then you have, Tom and Jerry looking characters that suddenly move like a person in 3D space, and that looks completely wrong and is a clear indicator that someone is using AI because they didn't prompt the specific style of motion that they wanted. In our example, I'm going to say place the hat, so the little hunter's hat, onto the big rock, because this is also part of our subject. It's something our main character is interacting with. And the mythical creature from image 1 hops into view, have some actions that I want. I want him to just, hop and sniff the hat and pluck the little feather off of the cap. And then he says something that I'm going to keep a little bit of a secret to make it funny, where we want to make sure that the environment is also alive a little bit, right? The flowers are moving, the clouds, maybe the trees. The creek, of course, is water flowing. We want that to happen. And the way, because I want to keep it cinematic, it should look quite realistic. That's the default. I want a cinematic dolly in. So I want the camera to kind of move toward the action. Low DOF, that's low depth of field. That means the background should become blurry. And so the character is in the foreground and important. And just as kind of a little quirk, I don't want music in it. And these models love adding music. So you have to prompt that. This is what the final thing looks like. This is what the UI is. You have the different images. And down here you can set, I want 15 seconds with sound. So what do we get?
Stefan? Das ist doch Affäre vom Huber Stefan!
It's a whole cinematic universe. Thank you. Thank you. So, this was a simple prompt. Of course, they do get a little bit more complicated as you do real productions. So this is also where AI can come into play. Obviously, filmmakers are vibe coding all the time, building custom tools that are helpful for their workflow. This specifically is a free tool. You can use it. I call it Crumpet. And it's actually the controlled runtime for unified media prompt engineering and timing. It's a prompt builder that's timeline-based. Because I realized, for some reason, my dad recently, I don't know where he's sitting, we had this conversation where You mentioned that you remember there was a programming book in the 80s where people were very excited about moving away from command lines. That was the original way we interacted with computers, was text. And we hated that. We wanted to invent interfaces. And now suddenly everybody's talking about prompting again. I'm making a film. It takes place through linear time, so I want a timeline from 1 to 15 seconds, and I can place the different spots of my prompt in those points. So that's what I built. And you can see it needs it because if you just try to write this out, you don't really get, like, that's just text. You don't want to read all that. You don't want to plan that out. You want to do it step by step. So now, where does all of this take us, right? What do we learn from these AI tools that actually seem quite simple to use, right? I'm not going to pretend they're not. There are some advanced uses, but we're still quite far away from AI creators getting enough of an audience to be able to maybe get a big Hollywood deal. I've mentioned Gossip Goblin, but honestly, I mention him because there's like 3 maybe out there that have potential like this, so that needs to grow. And, well, this is built on IP, so we're not going to get those $2.7 billion using AI because we need to build huge IPs first. Is it going to be Dino Crusade Japan? I don't really think so. So what is it actually going to be? Is there a formula? Is there some kind of prophecy I can set up and tell you what's going to happen? Well, I do think so. Because we need to first make people accept AI-powered content. I briefly mentioned creators were still scared of it. Audiences are also extremely scared of it. Why? Because they are actively being told to be scared by AI providers. What do I mean? Well, the AI providers, of course, they are still in that stage where they have a ton of financial backing, and the actual prices of these tools haven't been revealed. All of the prices are still being subsidized incredibly. Now, there are open source models that we can run on our own hardware, and that's what I always say when people say, well, you know, it costs so much. Well, if I have a dedicated graphics card, I can make decent videos for free, paying just the electric power. But those models were trained for dozens of millions of dollars. And at some point, the companies that did that, the investors that financed it, are going to say, that's not worth it. We're not going to improve those models. So a lot of that financial stuff is still in the air, but they're not advertising it that way. They're saying this is cheaper than the people working on the movies. This is going to be the future. Everybody run toward AI. Who can afford it, who has these IPs, or who isn't a creator who needs to do kind of the actual work, right? So I think, big conspiracy, the creators, the creatives are scared of the AI tools because they're buying into the marketing that's not meant for them, that's meant for studios and distributors. Well, how do we get them back and how do we get the audience back? Honestly, by making good stuff. That sounds so basic, but if you look at the comments under Gossip Goblin videos, I'm going to keep saying Gossip Goblin, people say, this is what AI was made for. So that's the way through. That's the way to say, okay, I'm going to watch this despite it being AI because it touches me as a human being. Secret there is a human being wrote it. That's why. So does the story touch me on an authentic human level? The second thing we've seen, it needs to be competent filmmaking craftsmanship. And this is what I tell creators. You, if you've made films for sometimes decades, you are way ahead of anybody picking up a prompt box and just saying, I'm going to make an AI film. So the question I would ask, could this creator tell the same story without AI if given a competent budget, right? If they're given a team, if they're given the technology, are they able to direct? Then, yes, it's good. And widespread acceptance of AI in social media. This is actually based in fear. The question is not, can I watch this in my room, right? It's if I tell other people about it, which is what gets people excited about Marvel films and other stuff they've seen in the theater. Will I be judged for it? Will I possibly be rejected by other people? So this is a social phenomenon. So let's take a look at these. High quality empathetic writing. You're here for a micro workshop as well. Honestly, not that incredibly hard. Of course, it takes a lot of practice, but I'm just going to give you one very simple thing. What is a story? Super easy. You have two axes, up and down. This is good fortune. This is bad fortune. This is how our main character is doing at any given point in time. This is the actual timeline of the story. We have the beginning and the end of the story. Pretty obvious right now, so far, right? What is a good story for this? Well, very easy. Your main character wakes up one morning, has a good day, but it starts getting a little bit worse. They're a smart character, though, and they try really hard and find a way out of it, becoming a better person in the process. We like that story, right? We want to know, who's this person? Does he have sequels? Every story that's in the mainstream is pretty much following this exact path. And by far, most AI work I've seen doesn't. And that's why it fails. You don't empathize with the main character. He's like driving in a car, something explodes, a robot grabs a dinosaur by the neck. No. This, step one. Okay. Competent filmmaking craftsmanship. Honestly, a lot of this is outside of AI. And this is leading me to a little premiere I want to show you today. I spend a lot of time mixing traditional tools with AI tools because the AI tools are not enough. They need to be edited. They need to be given that information. I already gave you a little teaser. That sketch I did for the pebbles in the creek, that was necessary for the AI to actually understand roughly what I want that set to look like. So it can't just be prompted. Of course, the advanced way of doing so is designing in traditional 3D software. This is something from that project I'm about to show you. It's an office. It's made of cubes, right? It's not that advanced. But by doing so, giving this to the AI, I can say, okay, I want that chair to be on that side and the camera to be here in the first place, a little flag on that side. Suddenly, it's much easier. And people who can do art. This would take really long to prompt a character to my exact specifications as a director. And this is an illustrator, Ariane Emmerich. She sat down, listened to my long list of demands, and made a character that I loved. This is Sarah. And she made a whole group of characters that look the same style, which AI is really not yet capable of doing. Widespread social acceptance. Hopefully, I'm doing a little bit of that right here. I spend a ton of time talking about AI and filmmaking and how it's done and that there are people involved and that it's fun and can actually be very helpful for us in the future to compete with companies that we otherwise could never compete with. So there we go. Basically, is AI going to be accepted? Well, is the product good? How can you tell if something is good? Well, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I'd like to ask you actually, what makes something good? A piece of entertainment. It touches you. Mm-hmm. How about you? Mm-hmm. Very good. Yes? Yep. If you would pay for it. It's emotional. Yeah. And specifically, is it emotional in the way, I believe at least, this is my theory, the creator intended? Because this is kind of the bad, the scary thing about creating films is your audience is incredibly expert at knowing what a good film is, because we've all seen so many. And yes. Yes. We can all feel, we can't all make a film, but we can all feel if the film is made well. So I think it's very, very straightforward. Is the result the intention put forward by the creator? Did the director want to make you cry and you cry? Great. Did she make you want to laugh and you laughed? Great. And this is the tough part of breaking through to IPs, for example. What is an IP? This is decades of that specific superhero making you feel what the superhero or the creator of that superhero promised you. And that's what you're willing to spend money on. So hopefully, I've had an intention for a couple months now with my buddy Robert Sladicek, and we've been working on a project with our team, with Ariane, those illustrated characters, and I'd like to show you the first 90 seconds of something that we intended to be an adult animated sitcom. So let's check out Tarmac.
Nina, we gotta go! We gotta go!
What's going on, Daddy?
She's back!
Mommy?
No, Mommy's still with Derek. The mothership! She's coming! The others saw the lights again.
But it's school night.
Honey, if we finally get Daddy's evidence, tomorrow he gets to school the government. Go warm up the car.
Ow!
Hey, it's not for you, it's for them.
Why do aliens need cocoa?
Did you not read the ABCs of alien encounters?
I did, I promise. Remain calm, bring cocoa, and don't comment on the green skin. It's racist.
Darn right. And that's the kind of thinking that gets people probed.
Dad!
It's beautiful.
They're buying it. Not a single eyes on us down here.
We're a go.
Let's get it moving, boys. God help us.
Thank you very much, and I'm open for any questions you might have. We can go have some pizza together, have a beer, and yeah, hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much.